Suicide Squad is the latest in the DC Comics film universe, where a team of the world's most dangerous, incarcerated supervillains with nothing to lose are sent on a top-secret government mission to defeat an enigmatic, insufferable entity. Will the Suicide Squad resolve their differences and die trying, or decide it's every man and woman for themselves? I'm Edmund Tran, and joining me is Jess McDonald.
What's up?
And Luke Lancaster from CNET.
Hey, guys.
Who's also written a bunch of film reviews for us. So just a forewarning, this discussion of Suicide Squad will contain mild spoilers, so if you want to go in cold, stop watching. And you can also read Tony Guerra's review on GameSpot instead. But, guys, did this film give you the warm, fuzzy squad goals feelings, or did it make you want to kill yourself?
Ooh.
I'm going to go with the latter.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that's harsh,
That's
but
not
yeah.
exaggerating.
I think it's a little bit exaggerated.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to kill myself walking out of the movie. It wasn't good, but
Disappointed is a relevant sentiment that I think a lot of us felt.
yeah, I think disappointed is a good way
I
to...
definitely walked out of it not loving it. Now, before we go further, let's quickly disclose our familiarity with the source material, since audience mileage tends to vary with this kind of film. So I'm a big Marvel fan, and I've never been able to really get into DC heroes very much, despite trying with comics and film. So I'm not totally invested in Suicide Squad, and I'm coming to these characters mostly fresh.
I'm pretty familiar with all of them. Again, I'm more of a Marvel man, which I feel like will be held against me for not liking this movie.
Yes.
But I certainly wasn't unfamiliar with anyone going into this. Like, I knew the general Suicide Squad concept, I knew all the characters. You could kind of pick where the plot was going, but that's a different thing.
Yeah, I'm definitely the far side on the other direction past you guys. I had not heard of Suicide Squad before the trailers for this movie came out. I knew Joker and Harley, but that's about it.
Now, we're going to go through a bunch of the characters shortly, but first of all, let's talk about the plot of Suicide Squad that brings everyone together, the setup and the adventure that follows.
So basically the threat, I mean, we should talk about the threat, right?
Yes.
Because
We're
the
going straight in. Okay,
reason-
plot.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, sorry.
The reason Suicide Squad is basically put into action is, to deal with superhuman threats. We need superhumans. And that threat happens to be Enchantress has brought about her brother back to life. So Enchantress is a witch who's possessing
An archaeologist.
an archaeologist whose boyfriend is working for the government as a soldier.
Who has the most military name ever.
Rick Flag.
Rick Flag.
And he's
she
like
goes rogue.
the caretaker of the Suicide Squad or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's never really made clear.
Yeah.
I mean, that's who he is, but he's just kind of there as the official on the ground managing all the crazy supervillains.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about how that was brought together? How they got everyone out of jail and put them...
It was both really rushed and took way too long, you know?
Yeah. So basically what we got at the start of the film was like little profiles on each character. So obviously the squad's a lot of people and a lot of people that people probably aren't familiar with, unlike perhaps Marvel. So basically what they did was give you sort of backstory and show you how they were caught. And it kind of felt like, here's why you should care about the characters, but didn't really give compelling reasons to do so.
Yeah, of the squad, which was, I think, close to 10 people, the only two of them that were really well developed was Deadshot, who was Will Smith, and Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
But those are like the two most famous members of the squad in terms of character anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
But even then, it was all kind of loosely connected flashbacks to stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the only real character moment you got for anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite telling that the film started on the character moments.
Yes. Yeah.
But when they eventually got to the main sort of mission, the stakes weren't there for that. I didn't really care whether the city would be torn apart.
Well, not even
Yeah.
that. It's these characters are on a do-or-die mission, and you don't particularly care if they're going to die.
No.
I mean, that's not what you want, right?
Yeah, that's true. Well, let's go into the portrayal of characters, actually. Let's go one by one. Let's go with Harley first.
Yeah.
What do we think of Harley?
I think we've got some problems. What I thought was a shame is they do actually use quite a lot from her story, her origin story, where, you know, she's got quite a unconventional romance with Joker. She's initially his psychiatrist in Arkham Asylum. He convinces her to break him out and then he actually convinces her to get into a vat of, you know, steamy,
Like the chemicals
turn
that
into
made him the Joker.
superhero
Yeah.
liquid.
Yeah.
And it's sort of the romance underpinning the film, which anyone who understands the story of Harley and Joker, which is basically quite.
I've got to say, romance is a strong word.
But I felt like Suicide Squad pumped it up as a romance. Like
little bit,
he's
yeah.
like trying to save her, and he's like Joker doesn't come up too much, but he's on her radar. He's trying to find her. She's obviously not really a damsel, but there is, quite a lot. It seems like there's quite a lot of love between them,
Yeah.
which is an odd thing to be delivering.
There's a lot of scenes of them coming back
Yeah.
together. A lot of flashback scenes of like him protecting her from other people, like
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff, and lots of scenes of them dancing in flashbacks, which is
I mean, I think that's really at odds with especially a lot of modern Harley Quinn comics, where there is very much that abusive relationship in her past, but it's a real character note for her moving beyond that now. And I know this is only the first movie, it's the first time she's on screen, so you don't really have a lot of room to tease that out, but she never really got the moment where it's like, hang on, this is not a good relationship.
No.
And you don't see her kind of built up apart from the Joker.
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I think it felt like kind of a shallow portrayal. I mean, I don't think it's really Margot Robbie's fault, but it just felt like she was quite basic. Like, and when she did have feelings, it was, oh, I'm not just like, sexy and cute. I'm actually upset that my boyfriend's gone and stuff like that. But she's still trying to play it cool. And that was as deep as she got. Like, as far as I saw, that was as complex as she got.
Just speaking of things that were Margot Robbie's fault, her accent was so uneven.
It did come
She
off
is an
a little at
Australian.
the beginning. She started since as very Australian, and went
Yeah.
into the sort of Brooklyn accent or whatever
Yeah.
it's supposed to be.
Yes.
But did you think that, like, the kind of her performance otherwise was okay? Like, well, how about the little crazy coming through and her little quips and all that kind of stuff?
I think I was meant to find her a lot funnier than I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think anyone who's even just seen the trailers can probably vouch for the fact that a lot of the lines that are given to Harley Quinn are supposed to be, oh, she's so cute, she's so nuts, but they just fall flat.
Yeah.
And I think that's on the writing. It's just like the moments weren't punchy as well. Like her one-liners weren't delivered at times that it made any sense for her to be saying something cute and quirky.
Yeah.
So most of the time she opened her mouth, it was a little cringy.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because she should be cooler than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had a very hard time believing that she could feasibly beat the shit out of all those sort of enemies.
Yeah.
So there was no sort
Well,
of
she had a
real
baseball
display
bat. I mean,
of
that-
skill, yeah.
I'm so annoyed that she had the baseball bat. Like, she had the mallet in her hands.
That's
and
right.
then never
at the
used
very
it.
Never
beginning.
used it.
Yeah, and then she went. There was some classic costume
Yeah.
sort of like
Yeah.
cameos and that kind of stuff too.
This movie does that a few times, which I think is a problem, where it will have an allusion to something that's really cool, or it will make a little joke and then completely ignore it in the next scene. So we were talking about this yesterday. There is a part in the movie where the Suicide Squad decides to basically disband, and they find out, oh, okay, they might be able to get away from their predicament and not have to, go with the government anymore. And the Australian guy, Boomerang, is like, sweet, I'm out of here. And bolts, and it's funny. And then in the very next scene, he's with the gang again.
Not only that, he's back in the very next scene. His name is Captain Boomerang. And literally no one comments on the fact he leaves and comes back with no explanation.
What?
That is the biggest missed opportunity in the history of filmmaking.
Huge. It just felt like they kept wanting to do cute things, and the same problem comes up in all the classic songs that they keep throwing in. We get
Oh,
some
yeah.
Eminem, we got the Queen,
Well,
Bohemian
it's
Rhapsody.
pretty much everything they used in the trailers as well.
Yes, but they're peppered. They aren't there to Guardians of the Galaxy style punctuate fun moments. It's more just like, remember this? Are you
If-
having fun?
If you're talking about the Guardian soundtrack, there was a totally diegetic reason for every song. It was
Totally.
like, that was Star-Lord's tie to Earth. It was that one mixtape.
Yeah.
And so every time one of those songs came on, you could feel his connection to it. This was just, let's throw in some songs because people like these songs,
And a
right?
complete mishmash of genres
Yeah.
and like style, and they really just hammered it home every single time. The scene would start with the song, and it would just punctuate the whole scene, music video style, which
Yeah.
is kind of the aesthetic they're going for with
Yeah.
the sort of this surrounding artwork and stuff.
Yeah, kind of
But-
like the day glow neon aesthetic
Yeah.
and the music video style. Like, it did feel like that. It felt very music video the whole
Yeah.
way through.
Absolutely, but they really just like wanted to hit you over the head with that kind of stuff, whereas Guardians did it much more subtly. Moving on to the other characters, though, let's talk about Deadshot,
Yeah.
or as I like to call him, Dadshot.
Deadshot's so
Because
good.
From my understanding of Deadshot as a character, he's a real hardcore hitman. He has very few emotions, and he's just really freaking good at his job.
I mean, that's pretty in keeping with most portrayals of Deadshot. Like,
That's right.
have you watched the Arrow and Flash
I have
shows?
not.
Well, he's in that as well, but he's much more in keeping with that. He's just a good shoot guy.
So I don't know anything about Deadshot. I did not see Deadshot. What I saw was Will Smith.
Isn't that Will
And
Smith in everything, though?
He was a dad and he cared about his kids, much like Will Smith does.
Yeah.
And he seemed like a really good guy. It was hard to remember that Deadshot was a bad guy.
Yeah, this is the pursuit of happiness with guns, basically.
Yeah. Box quote.
But yes, there was a lot. So he was probably one of the characters who had the most sort of character motivation. He was always looking out for his daughter and like looking after what was best for her.
Yeah.
And going out of his way to sort of go against what may or may not have been his morals as a hitman to protect her.
Yeah.
Really.
Can I just say, just in terms of like character motivations and portrayals in this, Batman makes a few cameos. Like you've seen him in the trailers.
Yeah.
He's kind of a dick.
Batman's kind of a dick.
Batman is kind of a dick. Like
Bat flick.
it's is it the very first scene with Deadshot and Batman? Yeah, where he arrests Deadshot in front of Deadshot's little girl, so Deadshot doesn't make a scene.
Yeah.
And then later on, he like saves Harley from drowning and just punches her in the face. Like Batman, big dick.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because she
I mean,
tried
she-
to slash him.
She did, but like,
Which was a good scene.
come on, Bruce.
Batman was kind of like one of the highlights of the film for me because like I could understand that perhaps this was Batfleck as seen from the villain's
Yeah,
point
that's
of
true.
view, and he's just a huge, scary badass who just
Yeah.
doesn't take no shit.
I kind of would have liked more of him.
Yeah.
In the movie.
It was nice having him as a footnote, particularly since the start of the film focused on how they were all captured. And the fact that so many of them were captured by Batman just made sense. That was one of the cool things. Like, I felt like this film kept getting really close to doing cool things and having cool moments. It just wasn't underpinned by anything
Yeah.
cohesive or well paced.
They didn't flesh out the moments. They didn't like connect them
Yeah.
in a more
I mean-
cohesive manner.
On a personal note, I am really annoyed that that is the first time I've seen the live action Flash properly in the DC cinematic universe, and it was just so underwhelming.
Oh, that's a shame. Not a fan of his costume either.
No, it's like a weird kind of helmet thing. I don't know.
He doesn't need that stuff. He runs around real fast.
Yeah,
he can dodge anything.
his pants should be made out of going fast. That's what he does.
Makes sense.
Joker. Let's talk about Jared Leto.
Like,
Yeah, I am not sure why he was in the movie, apart from giving the movie some romance, because otherwise it had none. And, you know, that's just a whole
what about
blockbuster
Rick
hook.
Flag and Enchantress?
Oh, yeah.
Like the central romance underpinning the entire
Well, she's
plot.
mostly not a
I know,
human.
right?
But yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Didn't really buy that love either.
Yeah.
But Joker seemed to be both Harley's motivation as well as a plot disruptor. Like he'd come in and just sort of create more
Yeah.
obstacles for the team to sort of recover from.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
wasn't in it very much, and he didn't.
He did feel very tacked on.
He
it
felt
was
tack-
kind of just, we need the Joker in
Yes.
this movie.
They could have had the same movie without the Joker. And not that I think Jared Leto did a bad job. I actually quite enjoyed his portrayal. I thought it was kind of good. I just wish he was a little more embedded in the story instead of sort of an afterthought and Harley's boyfriend.
And again, like they touched on a lot of iconic Joker moments, like dancing with Harley when he's in the kind
Yeah.
of dinner jacket and white tuxedo.
Yeah.
But overall, fan of Jared Leto as Joker.
I didn't see enough of him to like say one way or another. I
He had a
think.
few like psycho moments.
Yeah.
And he had a few moments where he did really remind me of
Ledger's Joker.
Ledger's Joker.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you. I had a mind blank there. But do you think you'd want to see more of Leto as Joker?
I would like that. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see more just to form an opinion.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, he must be the focus.
Everyone was so down on him when he was first revealed.
Yeah, and I can
Right.
see why, and I think the people who were down on him will see a lot more of what they didn't like in him.
Yeah, he's pretty much what you expect.
Yeah.
I don't think he was particularly surprising.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I will say I never found him threatening in the way that I thought Heath Ledger's Joker was threatening.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely.
Like he was never menacing. He was just there.
All right, let's go through the rest of the squad very quickly because, you know, they
don't get a lot of
really
screen
get
time,
a lot
yeah.
of time.
We'll go through it quickly, just like the movie did.
Yes, that's right. Okay, Killer Croc.
Should have been King Shark.
Could have been King Shark. Yeah, he was just kind of the big tough guy who
The water
didn't
guy.
speak real much. He just scouted a bunch of people and kind of saved the day here once or twice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Like I
not
think he had
much.
maybe 2 lines in the whole movie.
Yeah, I really think he did. Yeah.
He spent most of it just sitting in a couch.
I do love the plot, and by love I mean I hate the plot contrivance where he's the swimming dude, so there needs to be an underwater bit in the
Yeah.
big final battle
so
scene,
classic.
so he has something to do.
It wasn't even
It's
a little
just-
bit subtle.
But
though.
even then, he
it's-
didn't have a big moment there to
No,
show off his
he
skill.
didn't.
I think that was quite
No.
a common theme with a lot of the heroes.
Yeah.
No big flash moment to be like, this is why I'm so valuable.
To my memory, I don't think Captain Boomerang throws a boomerang apart from that first scene
In
he's
his
in.
flashback.
he doesn't really need to be there either.
No, he does. He was there for like unicorn jokes,
Yeah.
and one-liners.
I think you were
were
saying
cute.
earlier that Captain Boomerang and Deadshot are essentially the same kind of hero.
Except one uses boomerangs.
Except one is
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked Diablo. I
El
thought
Diablo, yeah.
I guess he was the only one with a backstory as well.
he had a really
Oh,
interesting
sorry.
backstory.
Just on Captain Boomerang.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how his backstory is he robbed literally every bank in Australia?
That's what they say, word for word. Which, as
And then
Australians,
he came over to the United States.
and as anybody, is a very strange
Like,
story.
you are aware of how many banks there are in just a regular city, let
Yeah.
alone a country.
Yeah.
I mean, good for him though. He
Yeah.
robbed
Good
all
for
of them
yeah, no.
with the dustbuster.
Like to be honest, like I probably lean towards him as one of my favorite members
yeah,
of Suicide
because
Squad.
at least he leaned into the ridiculousness.
That's right. That's correct.
Yes,
He
there
embraced
should
it.
have been some kind of agreement as to whether we were going
It's
silly
like, are
or
we taking
serious.
this seriously
Yes.
or not? Because it felt like people were on different pages.
I
there.
don't
Yeah.
think the director, writer, or actors were on the same page as to what they were going to do.
So El Diablo, yeah, he was
El
quite
Diablo
cool.
was fucking sweet. I thought he was awesome. I thought he had a great story. He actually had a lot of plot relevance.
Mm-hmm.
He was far and away the most, I reckon he was the most interesting member and
Mm.
had
Really, the
He was
only hero moment.
really
That's right.
tough. Awesome hero moment.
Yeah, it had
that
moments
was my
of
favorite part of the film.
conflict and internal conflict and turmoil and redemption as well, which
Yeah.
makes for like a really nice up and down for a character.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the slight problem with El Diablo is that he is far and away more powerful than the rest of them combined, which
Yeah.
does make you wonder if they were going to have this squad to take out superhuman threats, they probably could have just brought El Diablo.
I mean, that ties into the whole he's the most powerful, but he's really reluctant to use his powers thing.
which
like
is
that
an
is well trod
interesting
ground.
trope. Yeah. Liked him a lot.
Katana.
I wanted to see so much more of Katana.
Yes.
Like they touch on the stuff that makes the character really cool, like the
Yeah.
Soul Taker sword and like her dead husband, and she just never really.
But yeah, they were
says
just
much
kind
or
of
does
like
anything, yeah.
footnotes, like checkboxes.
Yeah.
Like, yep, mention the soul sword. Like, here's her
They
backstory
do it
mentioned in
so
a couple of minutes.
quickly.
Yeah, here's her in Japan killing some dudes.
Yeah.
That's it.
And she's here now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, our good friend Slipknot.
Who doesn't even get because there's so many characters, it does the title card thing where it's
Yes.
like here's their name and here's cool facts about them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like every ensemble movie ever does now. But Slipknot doesn't even get one, and he dies after like 5 minutes.
Oh, is
yeah.
that? I didn't even know who the hell you
Yeah,
were talking
yeah,
about.
exactly.
'cause-
He was gotten rid of as soon as he
So
appeared.
the whole point of that
Yeah.
was to be like, oh, look, they can die.
Yes.
The government do have
That's right.
control, and they can explode them with the
But
exploding
we had
nukes.
no
Yeah, they've
sort
got
of
like a-
concept of who
a
Slipknot was.
Control collar. So if they
Yeah.
disobey orders, their heads explode.
Yeah.
Which whatever. But they never even tease the idea that Slipknot is meant to be like
Yeah.
a full Suicide Squad
Yeah.
member.
Nope.
Yeah.
It's just like
There were no stakes there. We didn't
Yeah.
care at all.
Yeah.
no.
And on those title cards, I felt like that was a very cheap way for them to shoehorn in a lot of backstory, which was quite
Yeah.
unfortunate. There was no sort of organic
Yeah.
exploration in between the characters, say from them interacting and sort of learning about each other. And finally, we've already touched on this a little bit, but Batman.
I think like the whole thing with like Suicide Squad being like a motley crew of like bad guys that you're supposed to think are like kind of fun and interesting, it would have been cool for Batman to have a bigger role.
Yeah.
So there was more of a to and fro and more of a threat that felt more like, oh, look, a good guy threat.
Yeah.
Because it was a bad guy versus
He would have
bad
been
guys.
made as such a more impactful antagonist, you know, like
Yeah.
the Enchantress plot line kind of wasn't really
Developed.
Also,
Yeah,
she wants
developed-
to destroy the world. That's what someone says at some point. She's trying to take over the world.
Wait a minute,
Why?
Gotham's in the world.
But like, to what end? I don't. They didn't really explore
Because they were
why.
like weird old Aztec demon
That's
things.
right.
Yeah, but
I
it
don't know.
was
It was
just such a
unclear.
Scooby Doo episode. Of it's just like, oh,
There was no looming threat. It was just a point to walk to.
Yeah, I will say I was expecting something much smaller in scale, which I
Yeah.
kind of feel like is a problem with most of what DC's doing now. Everything is like world-threatening. But what I really liked, I watched probably around this time last year, was the animated feature Assault on Arkham, which was again the Suicide Squad. And it was a really tight, they need to like break into one place and get one thing, and Batman's kind of woven very well through the story.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's just really focused and still manages to introduce the entire squad.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And it
kind
has
of-
King Shark in it.
There you go. It sort of reminds me of like the second Avengers movie, like when they have that cute moment when they're all together and they're trying to pick up Thor's hammer. That is when like ensembles, particularly superhero ensembles, I think are so good when there are character
When they play off
moments.
each other.
But like,
yeah.
that was what? Almost a dozen movies deep into a connected universe. So you had
Totally.
time to
Yeah.
care about those characters.
But I think it's just like because these guys barely even spoke. They had
Yeah.
like a couple of scenes. There was a scene in a bar that they finally actually got to have some conversations and judge each other's pasts, and that was one of the more interesting scenes in the movie. And they were rare.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I think, based on the trailer, was actually cut quite short. Because there was bits in the trailer that weren't in that bar scene in the movie.
Yes, I did notice that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a cast this big, they really should have spent more time having them interact and explore and see all those character moments because, just from the outside, they are all very relatively planned superheroes. I'm going to get a lot of shit for that. But, it's a guy who shoots well. He's a guy who throws the thing well.
Yeah.
It's a couple of strong guys and a guy who makes fire. The thing, comparing it to Guardians, where there were like maybe 4 or 5 very distinct powerful beings, all aside from Star-Lord, but he had cool mixtapes, but whatever.
His
there was
power
no.
sweet tracks.
They really had to work hard to make each personality shine, and they
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
do that.
Well, I think we should always, also, if we're just going through characters, talk about Amanda Waller.
Yes.
Because she's a massive, massive part of the Suicide Squad. And she's always been kind of more morally ambiguous than this movie would have you believe. She is just straight up a bad guy.
Yeah.
Down to like the control collars, to her just shooting people who'd been working with her because you needed more proof that she was a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, she's meant to be hardline, but not outright villainous.
Yeah.
And I don't think she was well treated in this.
Right.
Like, what do you guys kind of think?
I mean, I didn't know about her beforehand, but she seemed like a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just despised her.
Yeah.
I could tell. I thought she would come off as more of a bureaucrat to begin with, but yeah, she
There's
just,
a twist that really makes you hate her. It's
Yeah.
not worth saying now, but yeah, she kind of sucks.
Anything else in the plot that we want to bring up?
The after main credits sequence was
Yes.
okay, but
It's fine.
not new, I guess.
No,
Like, it didn't really
yes.
tease anything.
There was no real surprise there,
Yeah,
but it was there.
yeah. Also, like, this... No, I can't really go into this without spoiling major plot details. But, like... So the whole control mechanism for Enchantress is that Amanda Waller has, like, her heart next to a bomb, right? Just crush the heart, which is what... Like,
Yeah.
just... You can take her out very easily, but you refuse to, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were lots of things that felt like they didn't really make any sense. Like at the very end, okay, this is a spoiler.
Yeah.
At the end, they Enchantress is the big bad, basically, big bad witch, and she gives like Suicide Squad basically a chance to be like, hey, you're all facing massive prison sentences. Do you want to just come with me and we can like take over the world and whatever? And then they're like, friendship is magic, and it's like, no, like these are there's no reason those
Like,
characters
why would
would
they
be
even
like
like each
that.
other?
They wouldn't. Like it felt a little like it happened that way because it was a movie and it had to.
I guess that's where it differs from like comic and other like animated incarnations of these characters as well, because they have history outside of this one movie together and as villains, and you don't really get any of that interplay here because they're just appearing for the first time in this format for you.
Okay.
So why would they know each other, basically?
Yeah.
All right. What do we like? What do we like about Suicide Squad?
I think, like I said before, I felt like it kept approaching cool moments. Like, this is what I keep saying about this movie, is that I kept feeling like it was getting ready to go. Like, I felt like any moment it was going to gear up. It was going to have, like, one of these songs was going to kick into a really cool moment. And there were bits and pieces I really liked. There were battles where I was like, oh, geez, like, I can't believe that happened. Or that was, like, fucking awesome. But it was a smattering of moments instead of, like, like a swell and a satisfying conclusion. It was just like little bits that were fun.
There was like no rising tension and payoff. It was just lots of little moments strung together.
right.
That's it. There were cool moments. Like
Yeah.
it was in the trailer. Most of the cool moments were in the trailer. But the bit where Captain Boomerang is just cracking the tinny behind the car.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It's like
Yes.
little nods
It's
to,
funny.
hey, these are like people doing funny things.
Yeah.
That's right.
That they don't really earn in the movie. They just show you them.
That's right.
Yes, they definitely do. The same as the way the songs are thrown in.
Yeah.
They throw in these moments.
Much like the film's marketing material, it's a collage of little bits and pieces that
Yeah.
don't really amount to a nice whole.
I mean,
Yeah.
Batman was cool.
Batman was definitely very cool. I did enjoy
cool.
him, and I don't like Batman very much as a hero.
Yeah.
He was good. Finally, what were your sort of biggest criticisms? What's your biggest takeaway? When you walked out of the theater last night, what did you think?
Look, I think the biggest issue with it is just really, really shoddy pacing.
Yeah, that's the first thing I said.
Like, there's lots of little scenes that, in isolation in different movies, will all be really good and really well served, but they're just strung together, so you never get a sense of flow. You never get attached to the characters. It's just stuff happens, and you don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
So true. It feels like the second or third iteration of like a Marvel or DC movie where it's just like they're just doing stuff with the characters and some bits are cool and some bits are slow and it's just like it didn't feel like kicking off like a brand new franchise with a bunch of what could be quite interesting characters with an impressive cast. They have the cast for it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they had the plot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, it really did feel like this is DC's Guardians of the Galaxy, but we're going to cram way too many things into it and like make everything way too heavy-handed. And just the style really grated me.
So, how would you fix it?
How would I fix it?
Yeah.
Cut half the squad, introduce them slowly, maybe a squad of 3 or 4, and maybe make the stakes much lower.
Yeah.
And have sort of more quiet moments in between them.
It's interesting because what was so successful about the trailers was how tight they were. Like they were
yeah.
True.
they were perfectly delivered and like on beat. Like they hit every beat. Like
you can see
and-
why, because they just lifted stuff directly out
Yeah,
of the movie.
but the movie is the opposite.
Yeah.
It feels off. Like it's not in sync with
It
itself.
felt like a trailer.
Yeah,
Like, it's just lots of little cool bits.
bits.
That was it.
Yeah. I think honestly, I don't regret seeing it. I'm still glad that I saw it. I thought it was fun enough. I thought it was interesting. I hope that with further iterations, they'll be able to work on this stuff. But I was just a little let down.
Yeah, I would watch other things with these characters in them, but it feels like a not great first attempt.
Well, that's all from us. For more on Suicide Squad, you can check out both our written review and video review on GameSpot.
Oh, and also written review on CNET.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Don't forget, we're the bad guys.